Hello and welcome back to my channel, The Dudley Bug. You lucky people. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about a local fella back in the day called Joe Darby, who was a world champion spring jumper. Spring jumping, what's all that about? So I thought before I got into the story of Joe Darby proper, which will be done at various locations around Dudley, I'll give an explanation of what spring jumping was or is. These days you've got things like the high jump, long jump and triple jump. Back in the day, spring jumping was very similar, but it didn't involve a run-up. It was always from a standing start. It was a recognised competitive sport. It was actually in the Olympics from 1900 to 1912, so 4 Olympics had spring jumps in them. Sometimes spring jumpers were allowed to use dumbbells, small cast iron dumbbells, one in each hand, to get the momentum going before they took off on the leap. And they would also use them while they were in the air to shove backwards to give them that extra bit of distance. Okie dokie, I'm now down Netherton at the actual memorial to good old Joe Darby. Now just over the road there, some of you may know that place, that's the old Swan Inn, known locally as Marpardo's, and I think it's fair to say it's one of the legendary pubs, certainly in this part of the Black Country. I've been in there for a long time. Anyway, back to Joe. So here we are, this is his monument. It was actually officially unveiled on the 29th of November 1991. It's made of aluminium apparently, and it was designed by a fella called Steve Field and actually fabricated by a fella called D.R. Harvey. Now what I'll do now is I will have a walk around it. As you can see, hopefully on the front here, he's got a list of all his jumps and feats and tricks, but I'll talk about that later. Now I can't get too close, as you can see, because of the flower beds, unfortunately, so I won't be able to get a close-up of any detail on me. As you can tell, it's a very busy junction. Joseph Darby, champion jumper of the world. Down the bottom there, it's difficult to make out, but down the bottom there, I think that's supposed to be a representation of him being awarded one of his belts, possibly by the Earl of Dudley. Again, I'll talk about that in more detail when we're on a quieter site. Right then, I've moved locations because the noise of the traffic was far too much where I was. So the rest of the video will be based around here. Now when I say here, we're actually in the churchyard of St Andrew's Church in Netherton. I've been here before when I did the video on the Dudley Devil, because he's buried here. Now, back to Joe. He was born 6th of August 1861, parents Abraham and Martha, and he actually died on the 22nd of December 1937. He was actually born here in Netherton, in a place called Windmill End. He did say, when he was older and he was interviewed, that he only had about 10 months worth of schooling, and most of that was part-time. But then again, he talked about the 1860s, so that's not unusual. He started working at the age of 7, making nails. Now, nail making is a traditional, or was a traditional, black country industry, especially here in Netherton. By that time now, a lot of the nail making work had been lost to cheaper competition from overseas. So most of the nail makers locally, by that time, were making horseshoe nails. So he started off at 7 making horseshoe nails, and then he moved into blacksmithing. It was about when he was 18 that he started doing his athletics properly, and he was very good at the 100 and 200 yards sprints, in other words, and he started his spring jumping when he was about 20. Okay, what I'll do to stay away from that noisy traffic, I'm going to talk about his competitive jumping and his athletics in general while we have a walk around St Andrew's churchyard, which is at least quiet. Now, his first recorded competition jump was on the 8th of January 1883 against a fella called T. Hartshorn at Leabrook Grounds in Wednesbury. And the competition involved doing 5 standing jumps, one after the other, no run up, remember, and Joe managed 20 yards and 1 inch, so he actually beat the other fella, Hartshorn, by a good 2 foot, and he won £20 for that one. On the 24th of the 9th, same year, 1883, at the same place, he beat a fella called Kirk from Derbyshire with 3 standing jumps of 35 foot 8 inches and won £40 for that one. Now, after these wins, he continued to work as a collier and a barge unloader. Bear in mind, we're in Netherton, the Black Country, so there was plenty of work for colliers and plenty of work unloading barges because the area is well known for its canals. Then in December, 7th of December 1885, he took on a fellow called W. Fillingham of Wigan at a place called the Queen's Ground in Barnsley. Now, the partisan crowd, because this was reported in the local newspaper, were well sure that their fella Fillingham was going to win. And the band played See the Conquering Hero Comes as their local fella took to the field. However, the reporter stated that he knocked the music out of the band and emptied the pockets of his adversary by winning 10 standing jumps, and Joe won by 8 foot 10 inches, and that netted him a nice prize of £100. Now, what is arguably Joe's greatest win was against the then world champion, a fella called George W. Hamilton. He was actually an American, went under the name of Mustang Jack, and he was travelling with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Joe actually beat him 3 times between December 1887 and March 1888, and that was probably the pinnacle, as I said, of his career. He did get awarded a couple of belts, World Championship belt in 1889 and another awarded at the Castle Fete in Dudley, also in 1889. Then what he did, he started to move more into exhibition jumping and left competition jumping behind. What I mean by exhibition jumping is he wasn't competing against another athlete, he was simply putting on a show. Now, regarding Joe's trick jumping, in other words his exhibition stuff, I'm not going to list them all, it would take literally all morning, but I'll give you an example of some of them. He could jump over 10 chairs placed end to end in one jump. He could jump lengthways over a billiard table. Now, bear in mind, these are all from standing starts, as I've said before. He could do a 6-foot high jump with his ankles tied. He demonstrated one of them on the 13th of the 6th, 1892. He could back jump 12 foot 11. He could also do 3 back jumps, totaling 30 foot 9 inches. And he could also jump over a horse of at least 13 hands, which apparently is only about 4 foot 4. I have seen reports that he could manage it over a horse of 18 hands, but I haven't been able to get any confirmation of that. His greatest exhibition was probably in December 1885 for what was going to be the future King Edward VII at the Evans Rooms in Covent Garden. But he went on kind of European and American tours, performed in Great Britain, Berlin, Paris, New York, St. Louis, Washington. So he became quite the showman. He did temporarily return to competition on the 12th of November 1898 and took on a fella called Tom Colquitt. Unfortunately, Tom Colquitt won. So that was Joe's swan song. So he lost out on £100 for that one. So, some of Joe's trick jumps involved, as I said, jumping onto things and then off them again. Now these included jumping onto an egg and then off it again without breaking it. Jumping on to the face of a man lying on the floor and then off again without hurting him. There are accounts that he also did that same trick with his young daughter. And then we get the infamous one where he would jump the canal, or the cut as we call it around here, by using his weights, springing off, bouncing off the water in the middle and then landing on the other side. He's a controversial bit. I don't think he could do that. I think what happened was he would deliberately, as part of his trick jumping exhibition stuff, he would deliberately make it look like he was landing on something and then using it as a platform to spring off again. Whether it's a canal or whatever, I don't think he could actually do that. The way I look at it, if he could do it then some of our professional athletes that we have now who are highly trained, scientifically trained, especially the jumping across a canal by bouncing off the water, I think if he could do it then, people could do it now. What do you think? Okay, I'm now at Dudley Archives Centre, which is right next to the Black Country Living Museum. And upstairs, you've actually got what's left of Dudley Museum and Art Gallery. And there is a dedicated display for Joe Darby's belts. Now what I'll do is I'll get a closer look at them for you and give you a bit of info about a couple of them. Now as you can see, there's a fair few of them. Now down here, these are a couple of the dumbbells. Remember I said that spring jumpers used to hold dumbbells in the hands and swing them forwards and backwards to gain a bit of momentum before they actually did the spring jump. And that's a couple of Joe Darby's. And here, I'm not quite sure how well it's going to pick up on this, but this was presented at Dudley Police Sports Club, September 1902. Now, Joe officially retired from competition on the 23rd of the 7th, 1894, though he did still do exhibitions. And he retired after winning yet another castle competition during a Dudley fight. And this belt you can see here was awarded by the Manchester Sporting Chronicle and was actually presented by the Earl of Dudley himself. Now this one here was one of the many belts he was awarded, but this was actually awarded to him on the 12th of the 6th, 1889 by Alderman Walker of Dudley Council. It was actually made by Elkington and Company of Birmingham and cost £70, and it's made of silver and hand-painted enamel. Okay, I'm standing in front of what used to be the Albion pub in Stone Street in Dudley Town Centre. As you can see now, it's two separate businesses, but when I used to use it, it was just known as the Albion, or the Albion pub. Originally called the Wellington Arms when it was built, I think about 1835, something like that. And once Joe Darby had retired from jumping, he actually became licensee of the Albion on the 9th of the 6th, 1900. And he kept it till his death in December 1937. So when he died, aged 76, he was actually the oldest landlord in the town. Okay, so Joe died in 1937, and as you know, we're at St Andrew's Church in Netherton. So now I'm going to find his grave, which turned out to be a lot harder than I anticipated, but I'll do a walk to it for you. Okay, I'm standing at a northern entrance to St Andrew's graveyard now. Behind me is, I think it's called Crescent Street or Crescent Road. The path just carries on all the way up there towards the church itself. Houses on the left. Now, if you ever come here, what you need to do is turn immediately right and follow this reasonably navigable path to here. Now what you're looking at, believe it or not, in front of me, you've got one row of graves on my left that follows the path all the way up, and this is row 2. And I don't know how well it's going to pick it up at this distance, but there in the distance it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up from where I'm standing. White stone, that's Joe Darby's grave. Oh, okay, here we are at Joe's grave. I spent about half an hour tidying just the front piece of it up and actually clearing a path to get to it. There we go. So, in loving memory of Joseph Darby, Stone Street, Dudley, died December 22nd, 1937, aged 76. Also his wife Sarah died May 25th, 1939, aged 72. Okay, now you may have noticed the change in clothing. The reason for that is I had to come back here today to locate and film Joe's grave, because I struggled with finding it the last couple of times I was here. What I did, I found the vicar. He was very helpful, and he gave me a kind of verbal directions to where to find it. And so as you can see today, I found it. So it took me about half an hour just to tidy it up enough to get some footage of it. What I would suggest, maybe, all of you out there that claim that Joe Darby was your relative, your uncle or great-great-uncle, great-great-grandfather, whatever, maybe some of you ought to come down here and tidy up that man's grave. I mean, considering he's got a huge statue down in Netherton that we've looked at, I find it a bit sad that he hasn't actually got the same kind of care and attention put into his gravestone. No excuses now, you know where it is. So, there we are. That's the story of Joe Darby. Now, if you're still watching, you've got this far, I'm assuming you found it interesting and worthwhile, which is always good. I will be setting up that Facebook group that I mentioned in one of my other videos fairly soon now, and it'll just be called the Dudley Bug. As I said, hopefully it's going to be full of ideas for other videos. I do have another video already in the making. That's going to be up in Dudley Town Centre, and I'm particularly pleased about that one because I needed to get permissions to film some of the places that I'm going to be going. Ooh. Anyway, that'll be coming out soon, hopefully. That's it. The story of Joe Darby, world champion, spring and trick jumper. So until the next one, keep out the Oss Road.